So, the question I want to ask you today is, can Europe be a beacon of hope for a sustainable, value-based and innovation-friendly society? My name is Damian Boeselager and I'm one of the co-founders of Volt Europa, which is a pan-European progressive political party. And to be honest, when I was invited to a climate tech conference, I was asking myself, what am I going to do here? And you might be asking yourself the same question. So bear with me one moment while I trace back a bit of my story, and then it might become more relevant for you. In 2016, after doing the typical management consulting stuff for a while, I started a master's program in the US, and that was 2016 in fall. So the Brexit referendum had just happened, and I was quite shocked by the fact that, history is not just countries moving closer together and somehow integrating further, but can actually mean that you go back into national, more, let's say, foreign or like old concepts in a way. But in 2016, when you enter the US in fall, you also fall into the middle of the US elections. So there was Hillary Clinton and Trump campaigning at that time, and a friend of mine took me and two friends into Hillary Clinton's campaign center in the night of the election. And you have to imagine this, there are like 30,000 people in rooms bigger than this, and they're all cheering. There's Katy Perry on the stage saying, oh, singing a great song, and then the Bishop of New York blessing the first female president, and then the numbers come in. And you see all these screens, and then people start sitting down on the floor, and at some point I saw 30,000 people around me crying. That is quite a shocking moment, to be honest. And then I walked outside, and there was a huge, white, big policeman who was like, it's going to be grand, So this is another, and for me, a bit more emotional shock, because I experienced it so firsthand to see what happens if you actually have right-wing populists winning. And so we walked out of this kind of setting, and this Italian friend of mine, Andrea, and Colombe, a French woman, we were discussing, and we started obviously to look also back at Europe. But what did we see at that time? Marine Le Pen was running a super strong campaign against Macron, as she will now do again, apart from the fact that there's an even more right-wing person running. And in Germany, the AfD was actually getting super strong and entering the German Bundestag with almost 90 people. And in Italy, where Andrea was from, Matteo Renzi had just resigned over a constitutional referendum and opened the door for a populist party, Cinque Stelle, and a right-wing party, Lega Nord, to take over. So this is the context in which we are operating, in which we were thinking. And it made us a bit afraid, to be honest. And then we understood that all these people are saying is, let's get smaller. Let's get back to the national level. Let's close our borders. Let's clean basically our own stuff out. And then if you look at the topics that we're discussing, biodiversity loss, climate change, they don't care about these borders. They're cross-border issues. They're not even European issues, they're global issues. But you can also look at other topics. I mean, I worked in migration before. It doesn't make sense to think that one single country, be it Germany or another, can somehow, make asylum systems work across Europe. Or you can also talk to startups and that work in the AI industry, and you understand that all of them need training data, and whereas in the US they can obviously use all the data that is there. When you try to train your algorithm with French data versus Italian data versus German data, you always have a legal cost that is quite substantive. So these are all issues where we thought, why do they want to get smaller when the issues become bigger? And then we thought, okay, we need to do something about this, because we definitely don't want to go back in history, because there's also an issue if you have national interests going against each other. So we thought, okay, we need to do something about it. And then when you're a management consultant, you think, okay, let's build a think tank. So, okay, but actually the thoughts that are out there are not the issue, we realized. But what's missing is, or like where the issue lies, is in politics itself. Because if you look at the European Union, and we have just heard a bit about it, the issue is that in Europe, everything is still governed by national interests. At its core, Europe is still a bit in a medieval time, where you have, the leaders of all governments coming together. You have the evil Orban, you have the rich Merkel in that time, you have the stingy Rutte from the Netherlands, and they're like bartering out the deals when it really becomes, critical, when it's really a highly political issue. And so we said, let's go into politics and let's do exactly the opposite that these national parties are doing. And we started to build or to found a pan-European party. But we were three, so how do you found a pan-European party? We had absolutely no idea. So we started writing a manifesto and some ideas and politics and so on, and then we started posting and building a shitty WordPress page. And within a week, 100 people said, we like your idea. It's a cool idea. Let's do it. And so we started, and basically 2 years later, we ran for the European elections out of 7 countries, which meant we had to register all these parties and so on and run a campaign. And we won 1 seat for the European Parliament, and that's the one that I'm sitting on out of Germany. So, thanks a lot. Where do we stand today? 2.5 years later, maybe just a quick view into what I do in Parliament. I negotiated the blue card, renegotiated, which is our European visa, and I turned it into a tech visa with others so that basically you don't need a university degree anymore to apply for it. We also allowed that people can take their long-term residence agglomerated years to other countries, so it becomes more European for them in a way and more attractive to come to Europe. I worked on the Data Governance Act, which is data regulation. Just last week we concluded that, and I work on the Data Act, which is about co-created, co-generated data. And a lot of other things. Maybe the biggest one and relevant for here is that I also negotiated the recovery fund, 672.5 billion euros, and we actually achieved to update the methodology of what green spending is, which meant that 37% need to be spent on green spending, which makes, test me on this, but I think 256 billion euros are now flowing through the methodology that we updated, which is, I think, a cool success for the fact that we were just 3 in a small student flat and made it that far. But the bigger question is, where's Volt right now? And Volt has now founded 18 political parties in 18 different member states. We have around 75 local representatives all across the Union, from Bulgaria to Portugal to Netherlands, Italy, and so on, and Germany. And we are in 2 national parliaments. And with this, we are the first party that has ever done that. So we are in the Dutch parliament with 3 people, and we are in the Bulgarian parliament since a couple of weeks ago with 2. So here we stand now, and the question is, has the situation improved? What is next for us? And I have to say, 4 weeks ago, I discussed with the Polish Prime Minister in Strasbourg in the European Parliament's plenary, and I was quite shocked, because there was a leader of a country in Europe, and he was giving a full-on right-wing populist speech with all the elements that you can consider. And so I think we are still at this crossroads of deciding, can we somehow update Europe? Can we further integrate it? Can we make it work? Or will it disintegrate and will it fall apart and we will basically go back to the nation state? Then all our great ideas about future climate governance will become extremely more difficult. And so my goal is now, in 2.5 years, we have European Parliament elections again, that we run out of all 27 member states with the same program, with a progressive agenda, and especially with a pro-integrationist approach, so that we can send the signal that Europe can work together and that we can turn it into the beacon of hope for a value-driven and sustainable and innovation-friendly society. What am I doing here, and what can you do to help me? What we need is very simple. We need talent. Most importantly, we need people that are actually engaged and that understand, like me, by random chance, that if you don't see politics as a separate world, but as actually your way of dealing with social and climate or any other issues, then we can make this change happen. But we need activity. We need people to join the change. And I give you just one data point which makes this so clear. Since 1980s, party membership has halved in Europe, which means people are not engaging anymore in party politics. But party politics is how we work. People in parties get put on lists, and these people you can then elect to somehow become representatives to run governments. So we need to change that, and I hope you can bring people in and you can join and help make this work. And we obviously also need funds to make these European Parliament elections a success. Thank you very much for your time, and looking forward to listen more to your talk. Thank you.